What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Purple People Podcast. My name is Kyle Smith. I apologize in advance. You can probably hear the illness in my voice. I'm going to be muting myself a lot. I guess it's a sinus infection, question mark. But nonetheless, the whole gang is here. Training camp is underway for the Vikings. And myself, Kyle West, and Adam Carlson, we're going to talk about it. So let's check in with the boys. Adam, how are you feeling? How are you doing today, sir?
I know this is a weird thing to be really happy about, but
he's
the
glad you're
sky
sick.
around me has cleared out, and I've actually got decent-ish internet back, so I shouldn't have too many interruptions today. Fingers crossed. I've been able to play some games nonstop, so maybe I'll even get back going on Twitch a little bit if this keeps up going well.
Yeah, we're certainly rooting for that.
What are you playing right now, Adam?
Oh, still Overwatch, and Puzzle Quest 3, which is a free game on Xbox I've been kind of a little bit obsessed with. I know it's one of those match 3 games that everyone likes to rip on, like Candy Crush and all that, but those can be nice to just relax with sometimes.
Yeah, they're fun. I got a couple mobile games I play on my iPad that, it's before bed, so I'll play 15 minutes of this. Help you decompress and forget about all the shit of the day. I just downloaded Diablo 4 and have been starting that one off. That one's a lot of fun. I would recommend it.
I played the beta, didn't care for it.
Yeah?
I've seen that around. I've seen a lot of good marketing for that.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not really the big game player of the bunch, but I would definitely watch a stream, Adam, if you played something like that. Just
this saves his game for the ladies.
Yeah.
Did you ever buy that Nintendo Wii that you were talking about?
It's sitting literally 4 feet from me.
Have you been using it?
I play the ever-loving shit out of Wii Golf, Wii Baseball, and Wii Bowling.
Yeah, that's
nice.
Wii Sports, like a lot of people shit on it, but like that's like top 10 favorite video game of all time for me. It's so flipping good.
I could play Wii Golf. I mean, I got really frustrated. I haven't played it in 10 to 15 years, but after about a week of taking, when I get home, I do about a half an hour. I got back in the groove and found the little shortcuts and stuff. And yeah, it was well worth the $100. I mean, you eat out 3 times with people that'll pay for a Nintendo Wii. So I was like, you know what? I'm going back in time. I love it. Thank you for bringing that up because now we can talk about Nintendo Wii games on the show. I wanted to clarify, even though I'm not going to be able to sing this like I want to. I named this episode after Dalton Risner because the Vikings have brought in the former Broncos guard for a tryout. Now, this has been picking up steam, much like, and maybe not as intense, but they were, everyone last season before was like, sign J.C. Treader. It's the same thing with Dalton Risner. He's had some injuries, so we don't know what's going to come of that. No news has broken. But I named this episode after him, and I tied it in with possibly the greatest butt rock band of all time. Creed is coming back.
Yeah, I knew it.
A cruise.
I knew that was the reference.
I had to, man. They're coming back with a cruise and possibly a tour afterwards next year. So this is episode 525 of the Purple People Podcast. Can you take me, Risner? You gotta put your chin out when you do it and push all the words together like you're Hootie and the Blowfish.
You gotta. That's how he sings everything. You gotta do it like that.
It's so great. Me too, Charlotte. They get a lot of shit, but it's so much like the Nickelback train. There's a lot of people at their shows. They sold many, many albums. I like them for what they are.
What's that album? Potentially one of the worst album covers I've ever seen. Was that Weathered? The one with the tree faces in it?
Yeah. Which was odd because the one before that
one, Adam?
Human Clay was like kind of unique.
I did see Human Clay.
The one after is called Weathered. And yeah, there's a bunch of their faces that look like someone had carved in a tree. But
please Google the album cover for Weathered by Creed. It is fantastic in how bad it is. You say carved? No, it is someone spent like 5 minutes in Photoshop trying to learn Photoshop for the first time with it.
No, you nailed it.
Yeah.
It's very quick. Yeah, it's so funny you mentioned that. Yeah, it was very hastily. It looks like a very hastily put together album cover. But nonetheless, I got to tie it together because what I wanted to find was something to do with Danielle Hunter, but it's really hard, at least for me. I'm not as nearly as witty as Adam. I'm sure he could come up with one very quick. Couldn't find anything that rhymed with Danielle that I really liked. That wasn't too off-putting or like too jumbled together. And then the Creed reference just hit me, and I was like, "This is awful. I'm going to use it." So yeah, but that's where we can take the beginning of the show. The Vikings are working out guard Dalton Risner. I certainly don't hate them bringing him in. Um, I don't hate this at all. It's more depth that we've all agreed on this show, and you guys as fans have said it many times that the interior of the line is the weakness of the offensive line. I'm not too worried at all about Christian Darrisaw, number one, and then right behind him, Brian O'Neill. They both are very solid tackles.
Yep.
Darrisaw's younger than O'Neill, but both are still have plenty of good
O'Neill's still recovering from his surgery, I believe, or still taking it easy at camp.
Right.
Correct.
And, we look at keeping Garrett Bradbury. Ed Ingram certainly had his struggles. Not so much worried about Ezra Cleveland of the three of those, but anytime they bring in depth.
Which is funny because Dalton Risner plays the same position as Ezra Cleveland, so this would be pushing him, not Ed Ingram.
Right. I would, and this is weird. We talked about it on the show. I wouldn't hate it, but I also wouldn't like it how the Vikings used to draft an offensive lineman and they're like, "Oh, we can just plug you anywhere." Yeah, maybe you could, or maybe you could just keep them at the position they played in college forever. I don't know if that means they would move Ezra Cleveland to right guard and then Ed Ingram's a backup. I don't think he was drafted high enough to where it's like he has to be a starter.
But you also got to keep in mind Ed Ingram was drafted by the current GM,
Right.
So
that's a good point.
Cleveland was not.
And I'm on the train too. Like, don't take my talk here as negativity towards Ed Ingram. I think he was certainly the weakest unit on the offensive line last year, but he was also a rookie. I'm going to give the rookie a chance to be better.
He's got room to develop and grow. I mean, I'm not throwing the towel on him or anything. He struggled last year, but there's no reason he can't, come on in for his second season when they say players make the biggest jump and show a really good improvement. So my fingers are crossed that can happen.
Yeah, and I feel like here on the podcast, we all gave Ed Ingram a pretty long leash last year. We know he made a lot of mistakes, but we weren't super hard on him, not as hard as what we could have been. So this year, I do think that we're expecting him to take more of that leap. We don't want to see him trip over top of Kirk Cousins as much. None of that to happen. I like the signing. I think it's good. You're bringing in a talent who can help you push your starters on that offensive line. And I feel like the line is pretty well set. But this signing is like, hey, don't be just because you were a starter last year, we don't want you to feel comfortable. So I like it.
I'm just trying to get any kind of quotes here. Excuse me. Kevin O'Connell, I've been watching pretty much everything that the Vikings put out with an interview with him. Now, obviously, the media there aren't going to ask him too crazy of questions. It's going to be a lot of vague, beat around the bush stuff, but it was cool to hear him get excited about having Danielle Hunter back. When speaking about Dalton Risner today on an interview from Vikings.com, he said that the offensive line's off to a great start, and that's exactly what you want to hear. So we'll certainly keep you posted if the Vikings do end up signing him. I'm not sure if he's visited with any other team, but
I was a big fan of Risner coming out of college. K-State boy, really good in the community. Seems like a really positive guy. I mean, he would fit in at least the locker room very well.
Nice. So I'm bringing him up here on PFF. Not that we have to live and die by that, but he's 28 years old, 6'5", 312 pounds. Second round pick, 41 selection. So he's a top 50 pick.
I like it.
34th in the league with snaps played last year. He was tied first with penalties. I don't know if that's specifically on him. That would be a lot. But only allowed 3 sacks last year. So I quite enjoy that. Overall, he's got the yellow stamp, which is an average player grade, 61.1. Not great, not bad. But I don't know. I think, not to beat a dead horse, I think shoring up the offensive line is something you can always look into. Why not? It's going to be ever changing as well outside of the tackles. I mean, we don't know if Garrett Bradbury's going to come back. He's on a 1-year deal. Certainly don't know the future for the other two guys. I would think that since this, like Adam mentioned, this regime drafted Ed Ingram, he's going to get his shot at least until the 4th year, 5th year. But I don't hate this move. This is them being aware, which I really like. I have questions about this regime, but it's not necessarily about the offensive line. And you can't be mad at them. Like, one thing that we overlook about this team, and I know we all have agreed this is not going to happen again. At least we don't think. It could. Watch it happen twice, and then we were like, well, damn, this guy's pretty good. But this team won 13 games last year with this very unit that we're talking about. Now, whether it was luck some of those times or what, but I attribute that to a lot to the coaching and the culture change. So I don't know. We've seen what better potential could be brought out of these guys. So I don't know. I'll keep you posted. We'll talk about it on the next show if he ends up getting signed, and that'll be very interesting to see the position battle at camp.
Most definitely will.
I hate to keep bringing stuff back to like, oh, well, this is how Rick Spielman used to do it, but it is interesting to kind of compare of like, if Rick was still the GM, where they always had that bring the band back together mentality. And after a 13-win season, Rick would have been sitting here going, hey, our offensive line, they played well. We're going to bring the band back together, and we don't want to do anything to disrupt their chemistry and make them feel like we don't believe in them 100%. And so I do like the way with, even if you don't sign this guy, you've brought him in and you've let those linemen know that, hey, you guys played well last year, but we're still looking to improve. We're still looking to improve as a team. You're not secure. You have to keep working. You have to keep pushing. And I think that that's a good message to send to the team overall. Don't you guys?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I also, I'm reading on Vikings territory. I give them their credit. It says, why would the Vikings sign an offensive guard? They seem pretty well set in the trenches. I don't think they're very pretty well set. I think they're keeping the guys they had from last year, and they didn't really focus on that in the offseason. So this is great. It says easy, depth and improvement. Well, obviously. But left guard Ezra Cleveland's contract expires at the end of this season. So it's pretty unclear if they're going to bring him back after this. This would be the end of his rookie deal. So that's good. Obviously, their depth and improvement, yes. But
it's a little surprising the Vikings are going after a free agent that might cost them about $4 million or so if they were to sign him, when they've got so many players right now they got to work on extensions for, and they just got that big 1-year deal for Danielle Hunter. I mean, Right now the priority has to be thinking about keeping Justin Jefferson and probably Hawkinson around. Those should be priorities, but we've already seen in training camp Justin Jefferson saying that a contract isn't really one of the top things on his mind right now. So I know players kind of are probably told to say that by their agents, but
yeah,
I still do kind of believe it when he says it.
Yeah, for sure. I would tend to agree. I think Justin knows that no matter what,
he's going to get paid. I think he knows that.
He's going to get so much money, and
he's going to get paid. He's going to set the bar for the receiver market. Like, he'll be the highest paid wide receiver in NFL history.
And deservingly
so.
I love this. They're giving him one more season to like explode and just get a ton of money instead of paying him based on what he's done so far. I mean, you can't be hoping that he's not as productive and that the team picks up the slack around him and they can try to lowball him a little bit. You can't hope that that's the deal.
So yeah, that would be. I hope not.
I love too. I'm on Spot Track, and then if you just go to the sport and then the team that you want, I'm on the Vikings salary cap for 2023, and it'll give you the calculated market values. Kyle West is going to appreciate what I'm about to say, because all of the fuss and everything around Kirk Cousins in the contract, I see a lot of these dolts and walnuts in the comments. They keep talking about Kirk Cousins. And if you just don't know football, you'll say stupid, ignorant shit about the quarterback. He's making 30-something a year. I want to say like 34, 36, something like that. His cap hit this year is only $20.25 million. So $20,250,000. He takes up less than 10% of the salary cap this year, which is hilarious. His base salary is $10 million. So it's hilarious. His market value right now is $43 million a year. That is significantly less than what he's playing for. And I understand there are guarantees and all that, but he came into this knowing that the Vikings only asked him to stay around for one more year, kind of to prove it. It's hilarious, but not far behind him. And this is like, for it, like I would say like 28th in the league, 25th in the league, money, maybe a little bit higher. Justin Jefferson's calculated market value right now is $28.7 million.
Goodness gracious.
Holy shit, that's a lot of money, guys. Back in 2011, I think it was, Aaron Rodgers signed a deal where he was making like $21 million a year.
Thinking that Jefferson can make like 5-year, $140 million contract, that's wild.
That doesn't sound like unreal at all. And that's why I love you guys in this podcast and why I love everybody that follows. When we talk about these numbers, we don't do that boomer thing where like, oh, they just catch a ball.
It sounds unreal yet imaginary.
Right. I don't know. It's crazy because he's done so much in such a short amount of time. I have no doubt that the Vikings are going to do him justice on this contract. It's just the timing is interesting on it because I feel like they could have gotten ahead of it already, but they don't necessarily have to.
I have seen that Justin Jefferson is the number one projected player in fantasy football based on PPR. So if you're doing your fantasy football drafts and you want Justin Jefferson, you better hope for that number one or maybe number two.
I saw something interesting about fantasy stuff, speaking of, and it was the only list that mattered that had Justin Fields' name on it. It had to be fantasy, of course. And they were putting him in the top 10, and I was like, imagine being proud of scoring all these fantasy points and not winning actual games. It's unreal.
Well, those rushing numbers will get him some good points.
Yeah, if you're into that, somebody scrambling around to try to get to 18 points in the game.
I've heard though from some of the Chicago beat writers that were talking on Twitter, the team is actually looking pretty solid up there in training camp for the old Bears right now. So if he can pull it together a little bit, they might be more difficult to face than what we're anticipating.
They might not be the worst team in the league again.
Yeah, they might not be.
I only laugh because I understand the athleticism this kid has, but in 2 years of being there, and I think a lot of it has to do. This is the argument.
With being a Vikings fan and watching the athletic Joe Webb try to do his thing.
Well, that's certainly a great throwback. That is not where I was going with that, Adam. This is the stuff I won't give an excuse for to Daniel Jones that I will give to Justin Fields. Because Daniel Jones obviously is a way better passer, but he's athletic like Justin Fields. I don't believe in this coach in Chicago. I don't even know his name, but I know that if I can't remember your coach's name, you're probably not doing so well. Obviously, they got to the whatever pick last year. They were fucking terrible, but I understand that he didn't have a lot of weapons, but there's a point to be made in a lot of that. I had this argument with someone on the internet today about Daniel Jones. They said, well, he didn't have any weapons. I'm like, you paid this guy $45 million a year. He should be able to elevate the trash cans at wide receiver. And I made the point, someone said he had an excellent season. I said, throwing for 15 touchdowns through the air in 17 games is far from excellent. I don't know what your definition of excellent is, but that's not mine. And the thing about Justin Fields, while we're on it, is I haven't seen the switch turn on for him to have that Peyton Manning and Tom Brady about him to where he's like, I see the break in the coverage. Good luck. My favorite all-time moment for any quarterback reading coverage and defenses, if you guys would like to take a guess here, it's within the last 6 years. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. But there's a highlight of it. It went viral. Quarterback is reading something. Somebody on the defense is actively talking shit to him, and he goes, "Oh, you've been watching film, huh? Watch this." You guys know what I'm talking about?
I do.
I don't. No.
Adam knows. Green Bay is in Carolina. Clay Matthews is chirping at Cam Newton. He goes, "It's that wheel route. It's that wheel route." Cam laughs. He goes, "Oh, you've been watching film, huh? Watch this." And it's in fact not a wheel route. It's something disguised in the same coverage, or I'm sorry, the same formation. And it's over the middle. They look like a little slant to Christian McCaffrey. It's one of the best things I've ever seen. And I haven't seen that out of Justin Fields yet. That's the number one thing you have to do. I mean, guys, tell me if I'm wrong. You can only improvise so much. That's why Jalen Hurts to me is so intriguing, because he does the blend of throwing the ball and running the ball when he can. And he has a phenomenal – it's much like Patrick Mahomes. He landed in the perfect spot for him with that system, that coach, those players. They draft so well. But I haven't seen that kid do any of that. It's backyard football, and it's a lot of luck. So I'm hoping that you're wrong, Kyle. I don't want the Bears to be good. I think we should be more worried about Green Bay being good. If Jordan Love is only average, that's still like a 8 to 9 win team. They're going to give people fits. They're going to lose more games. Like, the games we won last year, we should have lost. They're going to lose those games, but they're going to give every team fits because they're pretty balanced everywhere else.
Well, this brings back to Vikings training camp for a second, because the Vikings had a player that was turning a few heads there early in camp. Jaren Hall, the rookie quarterback, came out and he had a very solid first couple of days of camp, made some good throws and had people really excited, showcased a little bit of his mobility as well. And sadly, in the third day, when the pads came out and the Vikings had their first padded practice, the backup quarterback was absent, and Hall had a chance to work with the twos. And I don't know if the nerves got the best of him or what, but he had a couple passes sail on him, and he was very inconsistent. So hopefully, and I know that he's a rookie, so he can't take a whole lot of this too, seriously. But I like the potential I've seen, and it'll be fun to watch him, especially in the preseason when he gets an opportunity to work against a different defense.
Yeah, and something that I feel like gets lost occasionally in the coverage of training camp is that that's kind of the point of it, is to get out there and learn.
Yeah.
So you're allowed to make mistakes in training camp, and you're allowed.
But you also don't want to throw passes that put your receivers in situations where they gotta stretch too much and end up taking some weird bumps injured or something.
Right.
It's almost expected, right? Like when I see these updates, I'm in all these football groups on Facebook, and the big thing about a month ago is everyone was picking game by game the teams that would make the playoffs, so you could see people's biases there. The Vikings went 13-4 for me. I've said many times on the show they're not going to go 13-4 again, but that's where we ended up. I thought it was pretty close and accurate, but now the new thing is people are posting updates of their team from training camp, and I keep posting the Allen Iverson gif of practice.
Yeah,
we're talking about practice right now. Because it was always the Eagles fans, like Jalen Hurts was 50 of 60 today with 5 touchdowns. And it's like,
yeah,
you're in training camp.
Or, like I said to you guys in our private chat, when there's always some player on some team that makes a spectacular one-handed diving interception on the sidelines, and it's like, yeah, we're talking about the middle of training camp in August. Like it don't count. It don't count.
Well, the craziest part too is like, let's think back, guys. Let's do a history lesson. 15 years ago was 2008. It's 2023 minus 15 is 2008. These guys were practicing almost a time and a half, maybe double what they are now, because the league has evolved so much to safety and focusing on player health and stuff. They're not practicing nearly as much as they used to.
No.
Hell, Sean McVay of the Rams, I mean, he's a direct correlation to Kevin O'Connell, and I don't know that he's going to change much from that either. None of their guys play in preseason. None of the starters play in preseason at all.
No, we saw that with the Vikings last year too. I don't think Kirk Cousins took a single snap in the preseason.
And I don't hate that for the protection of your biggest asset, but that's just that's where we are now. It's a lot of we're going to.
But it also gives you an opportunity to evaluate the players that you have on your roster that you don't really know a lot about, or are trying to find a spot for on the depth.
Oh, got the like posted. Thanks, Jonathan. I put it up there if you guys are listening later. If you're watching this, no matter what platform, give us a like. I'm going to try to be as authentic and less pushy as we've always been on the show, but I'm going to mention it early and often in the show for you guys to like and subscribe and all that fun jazz. I hate it. I hate that being that guy because I hate the word content. I feel like it's the most overused thing on any platform on the internet. But whatever we can do to build this thing. But Charlotte and Jonathan, we're glad you're here, and whoever else was watching, we appreciate it. But before we talk about the training camp and what you guys have noticed, thank you, Charlotte. We appreciate you. Let's talk about Danielle Hunter's contract. So, defensive end, not outside linebacker. I'm not going to say it. Defensive end, Danielle Hunter and the Vikings were talking rigorously through the offseason. I love that Kevin O'Connell today said, hey, when I tell you guys me and Danielle have daily dialogue, that's exactly what it is. I check in on him. We talk about life. We talk about football. Yes, we talk about the team and where we're at. He's like, but I genuinely reach out and we have conversations. So I think this worked out for both sides. This is awesome because I would have been very bummed if we got Brian Flores and our best pass rusher was not here. We lost the people anyways, Eric Kendricks and Patrick Peterson. Do I think they were fine to leave? Yeah. I didn't want Danielle to go yet. He's still under 30 years old. He's still very much effective.
But I wouldn't be as bad with Hunter leaving if Za'Darius hadn't gone too.
That's a great point. I'm happier that Za'Darius left than Danielle because Za'Darius, and I mean this with all respect, thank you for playing for us, and you balled out the first half of the year. I understand injuries happen. I'm not going to hold that to you, but for you to be that quick to dismiss this team and just be like, do that weird thing where you tell everybody bye before they even trade you, I found that to be like kind of distasteful. So I'm kind of happy that he got to move on, but I really wanted Danielle Hunter to be here. So
what do you think of Hunter saying that he wants to be a
Adam, when Adam gets back, I'll let him finish that.
I am here.
Okay, yeah.
You froze up a little bit.
What do you think of Hunter saying that he wants to be a Viking for life?
I mean, I believe it partially. I think, honestly, if we're just going to be blunt about it, I think he needs a better agent. That contract that he signed, it's not the best for him. And we, of course, any guy's going to take the front loaded offer, much like when we're younger kids.
I don't think Hunter has a whole lot, despite his injury history, that he has to prove in order to get a bigger contract or a longer contract or whatever he is looking for at the moment.
I agree. And like I was saying, he takes the money up front at the first deal he got with us. And then over time, it doesn't come to his value. But, yeah, I think his agent could have done better for him overall over the years. But I wouldn't be upset, man. He's a physical freak. And I like that the team stuck by him, even though he had that tweak a few years ago. He's had a torn pec. I mean, he's been through it for the team, but he's a good player.
So what do you think of the strategy at training camp for him right now, working on the sidelines or in individual drills to kind of ease himself into football again? I guess they said it's going to take, 2 weeks, they said?
Truth be told, Adam, I have no idea the update for him. Worrying and looking, seeing if he was even going to be on the team. I'm just glad he's there, but I don't know what the plan is for him. I don't really know the health situation for him.
I guess they're going to take 2 weeks to ease him into drills and stuff like that before he starts working with everyone. So he is at camp, but he's not really participating in the team drills at the moment.
Okay. I don't mind it. I'm always good for the caution on like your starters. If that's what they need to do, that's fine. The same way with Brian O'Neill. He may not be back for the first game or whatever, but there's no need to rush him back to increase his chance of injury again. But, I mean, we're looking at, he was drafted in 2015. It's the only year outside of 2021, and he got hurt there. That's when he tore his pec. Both years, 2021 and 2015, he had 6 sacks each year. Every year after that, I'm sorry, I skipped over 2017. I'm not sure what happened there. But he's had 1, 2, 3, 4 seasons with 10 or more sacks. And I can't really fault the 2015 year looking at it because he didn't start So I'm gonna take one off. So you have 1, 2, 3 in 6 seasons. He has 71 sacks.
So training camp so far, what do you think about the weird defensive looks that the team is lining up for in training camp against with the 1s and 2s? What do you guys think of those formations?
I haven't seen these formations. I'm glad to hear that they are trying something different. I'm sure, and from everything that I've watched from the press conferences from Brian Flores, he says, "Hey, we're still going to try some of those things that you might have seen last year." He's like, "But we're going to make everything make sense."
So far in camp, Minnesota's been working with 2 down defensive linemen, the 2 edge rushers,
Okay.
2 linebackers, and they're working with an extra defensive back almost consistently.
Okay.
Which is strange because Minnesota did spend that money this offseason to bring in Dean Lowry.
So are we talking a traditional 4-3 with the nickel?
No, there's like 2 down defensive linemen.
I need to look into this. My ignorance here for this show is showing. I'm
So it's
sorry
like
for that, guys.
2-7?
Yeah.
No, I understand your concept. I want to see it in person. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that.
Or is this just their way of evaluating a really young secondary and getting a good look at all those players while they can? And since Dean Lowry and other players that on the defensive line have been here a little while, maybe they're a little more comfortable with them having their roles and knowing what they have to do. So maybe that's a little bit more of the case. I don't know.
So when you're saying 2 down linemen, Adam, so you're saying the defensive ends don't have their hands in the dirt?
Not really that I've noticed. They're just there, to take up space.
Huh. I wonder if they're going to get more out of them doing the drills on their technique, and then when we get closer to the joint practices or whatever later in August.
Because Tonga has been part of that defensive line at the start of the year, which he was one of those players that people didn't know if he was going to be a starter this year or not, and it looks like the team really likes him.
Nice. Well, that's good. I'm going to say a generic statement here, and I apologize to anyone listening, but I'll tell you what I would love to see. And I saw it in some highlights. I saw really, really good coverage from Byron Murphy on Justin Jefferson. He just made a very good move at the end to catch the ball.
Yeah, I know the play you're talking about, and yeah, it was really good coverage. But it's Justin Jefferson, so yeah, he's.
I kind of expected it to go exactly how it did. Sticky. JJ makes a move and catches the ball.
What I'm hoping corners that have been consistently in defense for the Vikings with the first team are, of course, but Murphy seems to be inked in as being one of those guys. Caleb Evans is actually getting starting reps, which is interesting.
I read this online, Adam, and I thought of you because it wasn't from the Viking Edge, but it was a Twitter article somewhere else. But it says this is the mold that Brian Flores has been known for because Caleb Evans is a taller, bigger corner. That's the kind of mold they want to have on the outside. So I don't hate that if he can teach him. Plus, Kyle West knows where I'm going with this. The other kid that we drafted is always hurt. He's hurt again. And I love him. Look, I want Andrew Booth to be something special because
Booth hasn't even really been getting that third number 3 corner look. Recently, it's been Joanne Williams or Mekhi Blackman.
And that's the other thing too. I think the Vikings were very smart to go and sign Joanne Williams. We drafted the kid out of USC, who I had heard great things about from watching a couple of draft videos on YouTube and reading an article here or there. But I love that there's a pro in there to help with that third or that slot area. But I'm very concerned that we have yet another corner drafted to this team that is not going to pan out. But it's not even Zimmer's fault this time because he's out of the building. But Jesus Christ, have we failed? Yeah, we'll blame him anyways.
Yeah,
I've been reading that in camp. The battles between Jordan Addison and Mekhi Blackman have been fun to watch.
I'm sure they know each other well from college too. I've heard online too. Despite his little spat with the ticket or whatever, Jordan Addison's been very a happy surprise in camp, which is good.
Yeah, they eased him in a little bit at the beginning, and now he seems a lot more comfortable. And with the Vikings receivers being kind of questionable a little bit past, Justin Jefferson, you're kind of not really sure how this was all going to shake out. You didn't know if KJ Osborne was going to be the 2 or the 3, or how all of this was going to work out. But so far, the Vikings receivers have looked quite good against their own defensive backs, and that brings up a lot of great questions. Is it that the receivers are having good camp? Is it that the DBs are struggling? How as a coach, do you look at that and be like, okay, what do we do from here? Is this something we can positively build off, or is this something that we need to work on?
I feel like in my head when I think about what Brian Flores defenses will do, and I'm not too sure on the linebackers. That's where I have the most questions, especially with this team. But they're going to generate pressure because he likes to pressure a good bit. And then that'll leave a lot of man and press on the outside. So you're going to have quarterbacks that have to think really fast and then hopefully be very accurate. I don't know what the hell the middle of the field is going to look like there. So that's probably a lot I need to go back and watch. But I'm happy with the corners that we have there. I cannot believe, now that I say it out loud, in the last 12 to 13 years, how many times this franchise has whiffed and totally botched on corners. And I'm not going to shit on guys like Trey Waynes because they were good, not great. And now looking back on it, I would kill to have a Trey Waynes on our secondary right now. But God, they have whiffed so hard on a Mike Hughes. And I'm not mad at the player for injuries happen. I understand that. But for how many times they went after this position and just don't have anything to show for it right now. And it looks like with Booth, that's going to be it again. Until he proves me wrong, he's not going to be on the field because he's always hurt, and it just sucks, man. I was watching yesterday. It's interesting if you guys can find it on Twitter or whatever, but George Pickens of the Pittsburgh Steelers, he's a freak. He's a talented wide receiver. He's going up against Joey Porter Jr., the guy that I want us to draft, and he makes a catch on him, and then he just turns around and throws the ball at him, being an asshole to him. So, of course, Joey Porter, throws it back at him. Coach comes over there. DB's coach is pointing at him. He's like, oh, what do you want me to do? He threw the ball at me. And they're like, oh, that'll be 15 yards. You can't do that. And I'm like, but you have that line and lineage in your name. I know that kid's going to be good. I know he's going to be good. And especially with the Steelers, Mike Tomlin, the defense is going to be fine. I'm ready for the Vikings to hit on 3 positions. And shocking that you're going to hear me say these 3 of all. I'm ready for them to have a shutdown corner like Xavier Rhodes again. I'm ready for them to get the middle of the line with a freaking – who's the kid I'm thinking about from Indianapolis that's stupid good at guard?
Quentin.
I need a Quentin Nelson. I don't care which side of the line he's on for guard. I need one of those. And I need them to go after a quarterback in the draft and put all their chips in on and the next Andrew Luck or the next Cam Newton or somebody that's going to revolutionize the team at that position for 8 to 10 years.
The next Mitchell Trubisky, go get him.
Oh, fuck, please don't. That's what I fear they're going to do. They're going to wait till 12 again and go for the B- guy. And if I could sit down and ask and have, 30 seconds with Kevin O'Connell, that's what I would say. Your name is forever going to be tied to this franchise based on the guy you find after Kirk. Kirk's great. It's fine. I need you to take a chance on oh my God, everything on paper says this is the next blank great quarterback. Go get him.
Looking back at Vikings drafts, it's crazy to think how many firsts and seconds were used on cornerbacks and centers.
It's tough. It's tough to get there when you – and I don't want to say this because it sounds stupid. This is like being mad that you got a $10 bill and wishing you got a 5 because nobody wants that. Obviously, 10 is better than 5. But it hurts even more. It's like when your parents go, I'm not mad at you. I'm just disappointed. When you look back and you have players that were just okay and kind of underwhelming versus ones that were complete busts. I look at Garrett Bradbury. I don't think he's a complete bust at all. But he is just here on a very cheap deal, hoping that he turns into one of the greatest centers in the league overnight this year. It's probably not going to happen. And the same thing for Matt Khalil. He has a great season rookie year. Every year progressively gets worse.
Yeah.
And then
you know what's crazy is that we don't know much about what this team is going to be this year. We haven't even seen them in a preseason game. But if we were to have the draft was to be tomorrow for some reason, you know what I would be saying the Vikings would be doing in the first round right now? Drafting a corner. I mean, we're going to be chances are we're going to be having that conversation again in the off season because they're just I don't know. I still feel like they're thin at that position. And I know what you mean, Adam. It's like they've invested so much capital in that position over the years, but you haven't hit it. And I want this team, like, give me Sauce Gardner, like, so bad. Like, I want that guy out there. Like, okay, we're set. I don't care who the other corners are. We have our guy that the other team has to work around. Now, as a positive for this team, though, I do think everything I've seen for Lewis Cine, different position, safety, but I still think he looks like he is going to be a damn good player for the Minnesota Vikings. So that should be an exciting young player to look forward to this year.
The one thing about Cine is that I don't know how much action he's going to see this year, but I don't expect Harrison Smith to be back for 2024. So right. If they're looking at the future for the safety position, just having Cine stay on and treat this as more of like his rookie year,
yeah,
that could be something that works out really well for him.
Yeah, like I told you guys, he's the one I'm looking forward to the most defensively to watch. Right after him is Brian Asamoah. I know Brian Asamoah is probably going to see the field more than Cine, so I'm really excited to watch.
There was an interview. You can tell Lewis Cine is still so young. All these players are so young compared to how old we all are. But they asked him, like, oh, are you doing anything different to prepare for coming off the injury and everything? And, to prepare yourself from not being injured moving forward. And he just kind of looked at the reporter and he was like, I don't know. It's football. It was a freak thing. It happened. You can't do anything to prevent it.
By the way, Kyle, I have noticed looking up here a couple times, Jeep shirt is very rad.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
I miss my Wrangler very much.
Yeah.
Going over the contract details, I didn't give the details out earlier because we were talking about Danielle Hunter. He got a $5.5 million signing bonus fully guaranteed, a $10 million base salary guaranteed, 1.5 per game, $1 million roster bonus fully guaranteed, $3 million in incentives. So it's a 1-year deal, but
it's weird. Does it kind of feel like a prove it deal?
I expect him to go his separate ways next year unless he just has like a 19 sack season and they're like, please stay.
But yeah, I expect him to cash in if he has a decent season.
Yeah, and even if he has 19 sacks out there, you're still going to be like, well, he's probably not going to do that again. So let him cash in somewhere else. In my mind, I really see this as the last season for Danielle Hunter in Minnesota.
I'm reading this on Vikings Wired on USA Today, and this is another thing that I don't like. I'm just now reading, but decided to absorb so much of the cap hit in 23 instead of pushing it out further. They did have over $18 million in cap space for 2023, which gave them the freedom to make this decision. The cap hit right now for 2023, and specifically to Danielle Hunter, is 20.95, so we'll round up to 21 million. A projected increase of 7.38 million. His dead cap, if Hunter plays elsewhere next year, is going to be just under $15 million. I absolutely fucking hate that. I hate that with all of my being. And even though it says it would give them more freedom if they absorb some of it this year, stop paying players to go win somewhere else. Stop it. After this, though, the Vikings are projected to have approximately $10 million remaining in their salary cap, which could be used to extend Jefferson or Hawkinson. So they'll still have $10 million. I think they're going to keep that for an emergency signing. That makes the most sense. But yeah, that's the details on Danielle Hunter. We are glad to have him back. I certainly, personally, myself, am glad that he's staying for another year. I expect to see a lot of.
This to me is best case scenario because I want it. Like I think he can contribute this year, but I also didn't want to see the Vikings tie the knot with him for another big long-term contract because I just don't think that 2-3 years into it, I just feel like you'd have buyer's remorse a little bit out of it. I just see that decline coming in a couple years for Danielle Hunter. I don't know why, but I just do.
Well, I'm not savvy enough to have watched now that I've been focusing on the team and really focusing on the personnel over the last 5 years. But I'm sure you guys watched it because you guys know more about football and followed this team longer than me. But I like how you have your premier edge rusher and then you have the up and coming guy like Jared Allen was here. Right when he was leaving, Everson Griffin became it, and then you had the backup Brian Robinson taking over, and then Griffin and Robinson were the tandem, and then Brian Robinson leaves, and then Danielle Hunter gets drafted, and it's him and Everson Griffin. Now Everson's gone. I'm ready to see the evolution of who comes up next, whether that be DJ Wanham or that be Patrick Jones. I don't know who's going to fill in that other spot on.
Yeah, the future is going to be kind of weird after this season, especially if the Vikings don't hold on to Danielle Hunter, because both Hunter and Davenport are pretty much here on 1 years, and it's going to be tough to see each of them find their way back to Minnesota. So maybe it'll be 2 starting corners or 2 starting edge rushers again next year. So I don't know. To me, this defense is definitely in transition, trying to not really get younger, but just find some stability for the years coming in the future. I don't think Kwesi would even mind if it was a edge rusher who was in their 30s if he thought they could stick around for 4 or 5 years. But he wants to be ready.
That's a good point, man. And it's I would slightly disagree on them trying to get younger. I think they proved they do want to get younger. It's my question is, and it's to your point, is okay, you sign a bunch of guys to 1-year deals. Are these all prove it deals? Is this all just rentals like the Sheldon Richardson year, the Zadarius Smith year? Like what's your plan going forward? Because you can only do so much with so many draft picks. Are you going to try to trade some of these guys if they're here for longer than a season? Like I would just love to know their mindset on that. And it's not necessarily to be like critical. I just want to know what they're going to do because there's a lot of what you do in football for the now. You know, Ed Donatel was not a good coordinator. They got rid of him pretty quickly and they found a replacement.
Bold statement.
That was for the here and now. I want to know for the personnel, what are they going to do going forward? Because like Adam said, Danielle Hunter's on a 1 year.
That's the tough part for coaches and GMs because you've got to prepare for the future to ensure your success for the future and set up the franchise for success. But you also need that success now to guarantee that you will be there to see what you're trying to develop and what your creation will become. So you've got to have that situation where you can buy yourself enough time to see if your vision for the future can be successful.
Mike says, how much a Super Bowl win would a Super Bowl win change contracts? I mean, it would be I fear that for the Vikings. Not to say that they would do the exact same thing the Rams did, because the Rams bet all their money on trading away draft picks and getting free agents, which ultimately worked. If that's what the Vikings did.
See, you're looking at this a different way for me, Smith. I'm thinking of a Super Bowl win would bring the value of the players currently on the Vikings roster up. So keeping those players would be hard, but for the franchise to bring in players, they might be able to do that on a discount. If it's a Super Bowl contender, you know, a team that just won a Super Bowl, bringing in players might be a little easier. So retaining players might be harder, but bringing in new talent would be a little easier.
No, I wasn't finished on my point. That's kind of where I was going with that. If the Vikings did it the way the Rams did it, I wouldn't be upset. But going after that, my fear was what the Vikings have always done in the past, especially the last 5 years. Well, we made it to the divisional round. We'll try it with these guys again. You know what I mean? Like, just because you win a Super Bowl with that one team, I mean, it almost never works out. Look at the Chiefs, look at the Eagles, look at the Patriots. Those rosters change almost immediately when the free agent season starts, and guys go chase money because their value is up, and they want to get a contract and get paid somewhere else because that team now can't pay them.
And you know what's crazy about the NFL and putting a roster together is you look at all those New England teams that won the Super Bowl, and I think one of the best overall teams they had was the year they lost it, and that was the year that like Randy Moss was lighting it up. They bring in Junior Seau on defense to come out there. He played great for them. What was that? 07, 08?
Yeah, that was the 07 season. They went 17-1.
Yeah, the 07 Patriots. It's like you look at that roster, and it was just spectacular from top to bottom. And that's the year that they friggin' lost the Super Bowl. So, I mean, it's just crazy when you think about putting a team together and what it takes to actually win. Because on the weird off chance scenario that say the Vikings win it this year, Justin Jefferson, Super Bowl MVP. Sorry, Kirk, but Justin Jefferson, Super Bowl MVP. What would that do for his contract?
Oh, I'm sure at this particular moment that would push him to $35 million a year. I wouldn't doubt that. My thing too, to round up my point, sorry it was so long-winded, is the end of that point was to be, and to answer your question, Jonathan, what does that mean for the Vikings right now in the scenarios? What I don't want to see the Vikings do is do this competitive rebuild bullshit every year, because that screams to me we are going to stay between 8 and 12 wins every year.
Yeah, and that was the biggest fault of Rick Spielman, I think, was just knowing when the appropriate time to tear it down is. And like you said, Adam, is that it's so difficult in the NFL because you'd love to have this conversation with the owners and hell with the fans to be like, hey, we've got players that are aging out, bigger contracts. We don't feel like we can continue to win with them. So give us a year or two and we're going to do an actual rebuild. You can't, because that's just not how it.
Right. You got season ticket holders you got to account for, and you got so many other things you got to kind of figure out what's happening with. You've got accountability to not only your owners, but your fans. And, you've got to put the best team you can on the field. And doing that, both short-term and long-term, can be a real challenge because, like Jonathan says here in his message here, how young is too young? There still needs to be some veteran presence. But what is the fine line there? Every scenario is different. Where do the Vikings sit in that scenario? Right. Well, trying to find that blend of young talent to develop and the veterans to be the leadership can be a real challenge. But as you've seen with the Minnesota Vikings, they've been drafting real well, and they've been bringing in some young free agents, but not super young. These are players that may have finished their first, their rookie contract with their previous team. So they're not new players. This is like their maybe 5th or 6th year in the league.
Right.
So they do have that experience to bring to help out with some of these younger players that are trying their hardest to make the club.
Who's the receiver that we signed from the veteran receiver that we brought in?
Number 19.
I want to say Albert something.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Albert Wilson?
I can't think of his name offhand. Anyway, that's a good kind of like you said. He's got some experience in the league. He's played a little bit. He can help some of the younger players like, hey, this is how you play in the NFL. He's not going to immediately shit himself when the lights come on and it's a big moment because he's been there a little bit. So I definitely like having players like that in the locker room.
Jonathan, to answer your question, I think you need one at every position group. You can have more, but I think we're in a different generation too. A lot of these guys, they have player-friendly coaches they like more than the old hard asses. They like to do their thing. They like to talk about stuff other than football while they're at, their job. I don't think you need a ton of, leaders in there, but I think you need key ones that do enough. And one at one position would be great, but back to this point, every scenario is different. How young is too young? Here's what I'm going to say, and I know it's too early to say this, but it has to be noted at some point. I don't think that as of right now, and a lot of this is injury related, I don't think that Kwesi's drafted particularly well yet.
Yeah,
he's going to have to nail it soon, because coming into the first year, our number one pick and the very first pick for both of these guys was injured. I'm not going to hold that against him because everything looks like he's going to be set to be great. But Andrew Booth and having only like 4 or 5 picks this year and doing all the shuffling and stuff, like we need to start seeing names stick on paper. And I don't need guys that are like C+, B- starters. I need another like, holy shit, this guy's pretty good. That was easily a great draft pick. We don't have.
But I'm also not going to knock him for sending draft picks over to Detroit to bring in T.J. Hawkinson. That's definitely not something I'm going to knock him for.
I won't knock him for that, no. And that does certainly equate to drafting, because that's essentially what you use the pick on. But unless we're going to keep doing that in place of guys that can get rookie deals. I don't know what they're going to do.
But TJ Hawkinson is the kind of player that I'm talking about. The Vikings have shown a lot of interest in those players that have 4 years under their belt. They have some experience. They're able to come in and do their jobs. They don't need a lot of direction. They don't need a lot of time to grow and develop, but they still do have the potential to reach that next level. Because I do think that even though Hawkinson was very good in Detroit, I think that him and Kirk Cousins were able to do something a little bit more special when he reached Minnesota, and Hawkinson is going to be a big part of the Vikings offense again in 2023.
I won't argue with you at all on that one, Adam. I think that that Detroit was probably purgatory for him, and he was just happy that he was probably going to get paid. Then finding out he wasn't, he's going to go to a team that's going to compete better and win more. When Kyle did it, didn't he win as many games in Minnesota that he did in the previous years?
I don't remember. I joked that he probably did. I'd have to look it up, but it's got to be close to
Adam's point too. And I know you didn't bring this up because we already knew this, but it also helps just on a base level, like generic, elementary mental level, that when you trade for a guy that's top 4 in his position group in the NFL, hell yeah, I'm going to love having that guy on the team. Versus what we had, and I'm sorry to shit on Irv Smith, but God, what a freaking underwhelming.
I got so tired of hearing about his potential.
Yeah.
It
then you have a guy that just comes in 5 days after getting there and then is immediately like, holy shit, that dude looks really good on the field. Like, I was very excited for that. So you're right there, Adam.
And you know what? It's not fair to someone like Andrew Booth, but it's the same way that I felt about Irv Smith. Is I kind of already feel that way about Andrew Booth. Hearing a lot about potential, getting banged up already. It's like I'm already tired of hearing this story, man.
Wasn't Booth helped off the field yesterday during camp?
Yeah, he was.
That's what I was reading. Yeah.
It's like it's interesting to me, and I know that everyone's different. Every player is different, but TJ Hawkinson comes in, no training camp, middle of the season, picks up the playbook, contributes right away. He's a big factor on offense. Jalen Reagor, we're supposed to say, well, boys and girls, you know, he's got a full off season to learn the playbook and get everything underneath him, and just give him time. Like but
this is where being an early draft pick doesn't earn you a spot on the roster or on the depth chart. I mean, you've got to look at the players and based on their potential, because at the moment there is no chance I can look at that and be like, okay, KJ Osborne, you got to take a seat to Jalen Reagor, because Jalen Reagor had more potential coming out of college and was a first-round draft pick. That just don't make sense to me.
This is where the draft kind of like screws people over too. You don't want to be Cordero Patterson. Like, you don't want to be taken in the first round like what he was.
If Laquan Treadwell were a 6th-round pick, it would have been great.
Dude, if we would have taken Patterson in like the 4th round, oh my God, that would have been fucking phenomenal. We would have loved him. He would have made it to contract number 2 in Minnesota. And look at what this guy can do on special teams.
Even to that point, Kyle, that's how hard drafting is. I know I'm sitting here giving Questia a little bit of a hard time, but Rick Spielman had 3 first-round picks, and that year alone, only one of them ended up panning out, really.
Sharif Floyd.
That was Xavier Rhodes. You overdrafted Cordero Patterson, and yeah, he had a cool rookie season, and he was a great returner, but that doesn't equate to first-round talent. Xavier Rhodes was Xavier Rhodes. I'm glad we got him. He was great for us. But then you have
Floyd.
It's all the 3. It's a little trinity of you have a star, sort of a bust, or an overdraft, and then injury. And I feel like it could be any one of those, depending on what happens.
I know, and I still think Sharif Floyd was going to be a damn good player for the Vikings.
Absolutely.
And it's unfortunate. Yeah. It's unfortunate that it wasn't an injury, but a botched attempt at repairing. I mean, that's what sucks for him.
I remember I went to a draft party at a friend's house, and we were sitting on the porch talking before the draft, and it's like, what one player do you not want the Vikings to pick? And I'm like, Sharif Floyd.
Oh, no.
And he said, why? I said, well, because he's got too small of arms.
Small arms.
Yeah.
And he's got that injury history as well. And, of course, that all came back to bite him pretty bad.
Oh, what's up, Sergio? He heard our comments about Irv Smith. Clifford Tang, you have the lowercase L, so I'm going to say Skoy right back to you.
No Skoy.
We love you, buddy. Jonathan makes a hilarious comment. Hey, put Rager in as a corner. Isn't that where they usually put receivers who aren't that good?
As long as you don't stop on routes.
Oh, God. That was the most frustrating thing I ever watched last season. Good God. Oh, I can still see him just quitting 95% of the way in on that route. What the fuck are you doing? Everybody that doesn't know football is going to blame Kirk for that, too. I have to hear this shit tomorrow. Oh, man. We're hitting an hour, guys. I don't know what else you guys want to go over, but just to recap, did name the episode after a visit from Dalton Risner, the guard from the Broncos. We will obviously post and keep you guys in the loop if he signs with the team. That'd be an interesting shakeup for the offensive line. I wouldn't be mad if they signed him. Obviously, we talked about Danielle Hunter signing his deal, a one-year deal. Glad that they both parties there could reach an agreement. And
I want to make a couple quick hits about training camp before we call it a quit here.
Sure.
Dwayne McBride, the rookie running back that the Minnesota Vikings have, they've been having him run some routes, and apparently he's looking very, very good running routes. He looks comfortable catching the football, which is strange because this is something he did not do much of whatsoever at the college level.
Hey, Adam, nope. This team's doomed without Dalvin Cook. Don't even report it. I don't want to hear it.
So that's been interesting to see, and I've heard a lot of praise, too, about Josh Oliver's blocking during camp and how he's big and taking up a lot of space, running around, picking up some bodies. So that's exciting. I'm really happy to hear that. And as a sort of fringe Johnny Munt fan, I kind of like he's going to be used as like the second receiving tight end.
Yes.
And be used.
Johnny Munt for me has sneakily been one of my favorite things that Kevin O'Connell has done. Because he's not on the field when you don't want him to be, but when I notice he is on the field, he makes a catch. Or he catches a touchdown, and I'm like, shit, I forgot about that guy. Hell yeah, Johnny Munt.
Johnny Munt's making this roster. Like
100% he is.
Yeah.
100% he is.
Definitely.
I love that you mentioned the blocking tight end, though, because that was the first kind of off-season move the Vikings did this year. And we're like, what the fuck did they get a tight end for? It's like, oh, he's going to block. He's primarily known for blocking. I don't hate that at all.
No,
I don't hate that whatsoever. But, yeah, back to how this team's going to fail without Dalvin Cook being here. How dare you? I really laugh because Adam and I specifically, like me and Kyle have our own private chat. Me and Adam have our private chat, and then we have the group chat for the Purple People Podcast boys. And we've been saying it on the side. I'm like, I keep hearing that Dalvin's going to the Jets. He was actually at the Jets training camp not too long ago. Somebody panned on their video and saw him, and everybody was like, Dalvin Cook. And that'll certainly be like a weird thing to see him, first of all, in the color of like dark green for the Jets, and then also playing with Aaron Rodgers. That's kind of cool, but kind of weird. But, man, you should see for every other fan base in the NFL, especially in these football groups I'm in, because we lost Dalvin Cook, like we're going 5-12. And like, you didn't watch a single game.
Crazy.
I'll admit though, I have no idea what to expect from Ty Chandler or Kenny Wangwu when it comes to actually running with the football or being a receiving running back, or if they can block as far as helping out in some passing situations to pick up blitzes. I mean, I don't know. And there is definitely a part of me that's sitting here thinking, well, Alexander Madison, I like him, but is he a number one running back in the NFL? He's not Derrick Henry. He's not Saquon Barkley.
True, but to your point there, Adam, and I'm not saying this is what you said, but those are the bell cow boys. I don't think that we need that on this team. And the way that I equate it for you guys, if you guys have listened to this show for any number of months or years, you know I like to do analogies. The Vikings offense, if you built it as a race car, is about as good as you can get. I know we could be better with the offensive line. Like I want the Eagles or the old Patriots line or whatever. But when you think about a specific player like Madison, you're like, okay, is the car in perfect condition? I just need you to drive it well. Do I believe the offensive line is good enough to block for him to get open? Absolutely, I am. They've been fantastic at that. Sometimes the middle of the line, I don't like their pass blocking as much for Kirk, but they've been able to move people out of the way to create lanes. I just need him to do his job. And like I said, I will stick with this until this guy is off the team or until somebody points it in my face and like, hey, that blew up in your face. You guys should have kept Dalvin Cook. I just need Alexander Madison to get 70 yards a game. He will be a 1,000-yard running back, and that's all I give a shit about.
What I think the Vikings are trying to do at the running back position is they're playing the long game here where they're going, look, we know Madison is not going to hit the home run like what Dalvin Cook is capable of doing. But we think that through the course of the game, Cook had enough runs that went for -2, -3 yards that may have hurt the Vikings in the field position game more, that we think Madison is going to get us maybe +3 or +4 yards instead. He's not going to hit the home run, but he's going to help us more in those kinds of situations where it's going to be better for the team overall.
But if you really want to start drooling a little bit when you're thinking about running backs, take a look at last year and go and watch some of those highlights from Dwayne McBride. He had 17 rushing touchdowns last year in college.
That's insane.
And if you can add receiving to that, it's exciting.
Dude, sign me up for that. And I'll say this, Kyle, and this is just me trying to think I'm a big brain football guy now. But think about what you just said, and we'll put it into my stupid layman terms. For those 1 or 2 negative plays, every half that Dalvin Cook would have where he'd lose yardage, if we get 3 positive yards there and we get 4 positive yards there, and he doesn't have 120 rushing yards a game. He only gets the 68 that you need to get 1,000 for the season, right? How much quicker or how much more does that keep the offense on the field and save the defense for another 5 minutes?
Yeah.
That shit adds up so much when you think about it in the totality of the year, because I don't think Madison's as physical as, like you said, Adam, as a Derrick Henry or a Saquon Barkley or whatever, but he is a bruiser back if there's a category you're going to put him in. He's going to run up the middle, and he's going to go one lane. He's going to carry dudes with him, and I'm cool with that. I think the Vikings are trying to have the air raid attack with a good, like a nice stiff running game, a punch you in the face running game.
I still think
it doesn't have to be top 10.
By not having Cook, this opens up your ability to use other players in other ways as well too. Like, would you guys hate on a short yardage situation? Like, hey, maybe we're going to give the ball to CJ Ham more often.
It would be nice to see some running back screens work.
Yeah.
I will give Dalvin a shout out there because there was that one famous one last year.
Yeah, he did get that one to work.
That was good. It was a crucial time to get it. But I'm with both of you guys because imagine what the other teams in the NFL haven't seen on Ty Chandler, Keenan Wangwu running the ball, and now Dwayne McBride. Imagine one of them comes in and does essentially what the Chiefs have in Isaiah Pacheco. 7th-round pick, but damn, he's a pretty good running back. Imagine we score that now, and we have 2 or 3 different options to work with. There's other ways to balance out the running game. I just thought it was funny that every other fan base saw that we let Dalvin Cook go, and even like Rich Eisen. Dude, you're a very smart guy, and you're tied in with the NFL. You can't see that it's money and age, and you're not supposed to pay running backs. But
as fans, we're kind of falling into that fallacy again here, where we are sitting here and we are talking about the Vikings offense, which, let's be honest with each other here, the Vikings offense really wasn't a big problem last year, aside from times when they struggled to pick up 3rd downs or were in 3rd and long spots. I mean, there were times that there were a few of those, but the offense, for the most part, got the job done.
Yeah.
We're talking about this defense that was almost last in the league. I mean, the Lions barely squeaked past Minnesota for that honor right there. And if this defense can be a top 20 defense, and the offense can come back and be similar.
They just got to maintain on offense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the maintaining the run game is going to be a little tough, but it's not like Dalvin Cook last year had the bar super high to beat.
That's a great point, Adam. I think it's an absolute home run and grand slam out of the park if the Vikings go from the 31st ranked defense to any defense with a number 1 in front of it. That could even be 19th. If they get to that because of Brian Flores, I mean, it was great for that 1 year you were with us, bud. Go get your head coaching job.
It's just funny to me how no other team in the NFL right now cares about running the football. That's the narrative.
So Jonathan Chow was talking about being excited about running backs.
Don't have the running game.
And I was still super surprised that CJ Ham got an extension.
Yeah, I'm surprised he's still with the team. I can see why they would keep him for his long tenure with the Vikings, and I'm sure he doesn't, make a huge dent in the cap. But
Because
for
other
them,
than the Vikings, it's hard to name a team that has another fullback.
right, we seem to keep carrying on the tradition.
It's a very old school position, but it's one that CJ Ham has found success out of. He's not the best blocking fullback I've ever seen, but he's got that ability to be kind of sneaky, to do several things that he's asked to do.
I agree with you, Adam. I'm glad he's here. I'm surprised not by CJ Ham, but by, like you said, the position being so outdated. I hate saying outdated, but that's what it
Yeah,
is.
it's no knock on Ham at all. It's just that he's playing an outdated position.
I wanted to bring this back up because I wanted to get Wes involved. Wes, Sergio, Clifford, Mike, thank you guys for coming in late in the show and commenting. I wonder if any team will end up picking up running back Zeke Elliott. I think so. I think you're going to see it this month. It's only the second day of August. We still have 29 more days, but somebody will pick him up. What I fear is going to happen for these running backs, specifically like Dalvin Cook and all them. They're going to realize they're not going to get paid what they wanted to get paid because that's not what the market is. But I have two thoughts on this, Wes. Number
Did you
one,
see the report that Josh Jacobs was offered $14 million a year?
I did not, but that's the thing, man. We talked about it 2 weeks ago. I think it was the show where you were out, and it was me and Kyle. It's not that these running backs are not getting paid. They're getting offered money, but they're not taking the contracts they're being offered. And I hate to be that guy because I don't side with the billionaire owners and the GMs and all the guys that have like millions and billions of dollars. But you would be hard pressed to find any investor who's a multimillionaire or a billionaire to be like, no, I'll just throw away $14 million. Those guys are tight asses about their check and tips going out to eat. So you got to understand, like, yeah, I would love for you to get paid $18 million a year as a running back, but that's not what you're going to get. $14 million a year is very good for that position. I don't understand. Saquon was going to hold out. He thought about holding out for about 3 days. And was like, shit, I better sign this fucking tag now. And that's what he was supposed to do. And that's my point for like Zeke. Number one, Wes, to answer your question, I know we're not here to talk about the Cowboys, but I think the Cowboys and Tony Pollard and Zeke Elliott are all perfect for each other. And he should come back on a cheaper deal because I don't think Tony Pollard's going to do as well without Zeke's help. And I don't think Zeke's going to do as well without Tony Pollard's help.
Yeah, they were a good combination.
They're very good, and that team is very, very good. Let's not get it twisted. For as much as we shit on Dak and the Cowboys and we them boys and all that, they are consistently in the playoffs, and they have a very, very good roster. I don't know if I believe in the coach. I don't know if I believe in the quarterback. But about every other position group on that team, I'm like, yeah, it's pretty fucking good. I think he should have stayed in Dallas. I think Zeke and Dalvin are going to end up taking lesser deals than what we expect them and what they expected. But now it might be that ring chasing shit because these guys are right at that weird age of running backs where they're not old as in the number of years they've been on the planet, but their football career, they're like, you're kind of
Where
old.
Emmitt Smith goes to Arizona?
They're going to try to go and chase. They might go chase a ring. Who knows? I wouldn't be surprised to see like Dalvin Cook wants to go play with Aaron Rodgers. I'm going to try to win with Aaron Rodgers. Zeke Elliott's like, fuck it. I'm going to the Bengals. I'm going to win a ring. Who cares? He'll sign with the Bills or the Chiefs or somebody. Who knows? I don't know. But I think that those guys will get picked up because training camp has started. Injuries are going to happen somewhere. We've already seen it. Fucking, what's his name? Jalen Ramsey, the corner from Miami. He's done for a little while. Joe Burrow strained his calf. There's another injury the other day that just happened. I can't remember the team, but injuries are going to start happening, and wouldn't be surprised to see those guys get a call then. It sucks, man. I could go on for days about this running back thing. I don't think the NFL is purposely trying to shun the running backs out. I just think the supply and the demand are so far apart. It's kind of one of those things. It's like, well, why would I pay you this much when I can go in the 7th round and get a guy who does almost everything you do or does what you do on one level below, and I can pay him a quarter of what I'm negotiating with you. I don't fault the teams for that. I do feel bad about the running backs, but whatever. Jonathan said, "Kiddo's falling asleep."
Well, that's good because I think it's time for us to say goodnight too.
We've been talking so long, we put your kids to sleep. You're welcome, Jonathan. Send us a tab, man.
Once again, I do want to thank everyone who joined us in chat. It's always great to see all you guys in here. And thanks again to everyone who visited my work over on the Viking Age and made me have a really kind of nice July over there. I know training camp and this time of season can be a little on the slower side, but training camp can bring people back, and we're getting a little bit of taste of what this team has to offer in camp. So I appreciate you guys clicking on the stuff over there. We got so many great writers as well that their stuff is really good too, really interesting. And even though I don't agree with a lot of their takes on things sometimes, it's always cool to read someone else's point of view. I enjoy that in a big way.
That happened with your website, Adam. I am going to say it out loud because I said it for a long time. I did not like Adam Patrick. And then once I figured out what his shtick was and kind of the way he was doing things, I appreciate looking at someone that I didn't like originally because I thought he was trying to be like a pro wrestler and piss everybody off.
Right.
Like, okay, I get it. I get what you're doing there. I don't think if I sat down and talked with him, that's actually how he was all the time. You do have some good writers over there, man. Every time, and I'll say it for the show to pump up the Viking Age more, go click on the Viking Age, find anything that has Adam Carlson right here. Find anything from the Viking Age with this guy and click on it. You're going to pump his numbers up and pay his bills. But whenever we want information for the show, I guarantee you if you're out for a show this coming season because you're sick or something, you know where I'm going to get my news for the week. I'm going to the Viking Age, and I'm pulling up articles and stealing information from there. So just want to throw it out there and pump it up, man. I'm glad you had a good month over with the Viking Age.
Yeah, I was excited about that because for the site or for the network wide, we struggled a little bit, especially early in July. I was wondering if things were going to pick up, and thankfully they did.
Nice. I want to tell everybody to follow Adam. Here is his handle here at MMVikingZombie, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, all that fun stuff. Adam and I were talking last week about doing some more of the horror movie reviews. We're going to get back into doing that, especially since the old spooky season is coming up around the corner. But give him a like and follow, especially if you're into the Vikings, especially if you're into cats.
So if you were a part of the Survival League last year, I did renew it, and an email should have went out to you to click and join back in for this year. I don't know if a link got shared for joining if you weren't part of last year or if you didn't get the email, but it will be running again, and I do have a lot of fun with that Survival League.
Yep, I signed up. Like I said before, I am very proud of my team name. Go figure that out if you're in the league and you can figure out which one's me. I will do no fantasy football of any kind this year, but I will do this sort of pick 'em per week. And hopefully I'll last longer than I did to week 6 last year.
Played a little safer at the beginning?
Historically bad last year. Here you go, Adam. I missed last year's. How can I join?
Was there a post made on the Facebook account?
I didn't. If we did make one, but if we need to, Kyle and I can get on that and figure it out.
Because I believe I did ask if someone could throw that up on the Facebook page, because we should be able to get some more people in there and have a really good time with not getting strikes. Fingers crossed.
Don't bet that for me. Bet the under on that.
But yeah, keep an eye on the Facebook page, and you should see a link come up for the Survival League, and you click on it. The password is SKOL, SKOL, all caps. If you need to enter a password, which I don't think you should, but I'm going to tell you guys what it is anyway, just in case.
I have the page here, but if I paste this in there, I'm being a boomer right now, guys. Let me put on my reading glasses and turn my font up. But if I post this to our Facebook page, I wonder if it'll allow people.
I'll send you over the invite link in our chat so you can throw it up there.
That. Yeah, I'll do that. We'll throw it up there, and I'll type the password out.
It'll be fun to have you in there, Sergio, and of course, whoever else wants to join in. We usually try to give away some pretty cool either Minnesota Vikings or Purple People podcast merchandise.
Definitely. You can follow Kyle West here at Vaguely Square on social media. You can stalk him, as I encourage everyone to do. You can also go on KyleWest84.pickfair.com Kyle's an amazing photographer. It's about that time of year for you, sir, where summer is going to turn into fall. I expect a lot of great fall pictures from the Midwest where you're at. So
Yeah, I've
you
already
guys
been out scoping out some locations, and I got some good areas planned for this year. So just waiting for the weather to start to turn.
You found any more cool abandoned buildings?
There isn't one that I haven't been to. I could.
Those are always interesting.
I'm always a little afraid, not because they're abandoned, but is it a drug lab? Like,
right.
You never know what you're getting into.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
You never know who's cooking meth wherever they can these days.
Right.
Is your current concert series over with, Mr. Smith? Are you in moving mode now?
That's a great plug, Adam, and a great transition. My name is Kyle Smith. If you guys want to follow me on all social media platforms, look up at NC, like North Carolina, at NC Dog Dude. I got a text from one of my buddies that runs a bar today and said, if you're still in town, I would like you for one more. So today I booked my final gig before I moved to Virginia. 2 weeks from tonight, August 16th, I will be at Trackside Bourbon, Beer, and Wine in Kings Mountain, my hometown. I'm going to promote the hell out of this on my social media, hoping that my friends in the local area will come so we can have a good time on a Wednesday night. But yeah.
Mr. Smith, what is your favorite brand of whiskey?
I'm not really a drinker anymore, man. And if I am, I definitely stay away from hard liquor. But if you had to put a gun to my head, I will always be a Jameson guy. I love Irish whiskey. There are a lot better ones out there. I like a good Blanton's. I like a good Eagle Rare. But good old Jameson will always do the trick for me. I'm a beer guy. I drink IPAs. I like the craft beer. I like the hoppy stuff. I'm not too picky on light beers as well, like an ale, a light blonde ale. I don't do the dark, like porters. I don't do any of those. I stay away from the sours. I like light beers or hoppy stuff, but, Maker's 46, that's a good choice. Had that back in my day.
So you stick to seltzers then, Smith?
I tried one once, and I equated it to drinking TV static in the form of water. Now, here's the thing. There's a specific brand of person that is targeted towards, and I always try to say, hey, that's a college-age white girl drink, which is exactly who it's targeting. But I will tell you, through experience and through a lot of my friends' experience, if you get on the White Claw train or the, hard seltzer or whatever else, you can drink a bunch of those. You can get drunk, and you don't feel bloated. Which is
back in the day when I was about, in my mid-20s-ish, people used to make fun of me because, I'd go out and I'd get a Smirnoff Ice.
Oh, yeah.
And that was the white girl drink back then.
I hate those drinks now. Like, my brother got me quite a few years ago, but we went to a movie theater when I was on leave in the military, and he iced me, and I had to do it in front of everyone as soon as we got to, like, when you do that little ramp up into the movie theater and then you can see all the seats.
Oh, yeah.
And he was like, by the way, you're being iced, and everyone was like, yeah. So that was not fun. But yeah, I get it. That was it back in the day. Now it's White Claws or I forget the other one.
And I used to have no problem drinking any drink that had a little umbrella or fruit in it or whatever. Didn't care.
I don't give a shit. They're great. They don't make you feel bloated, but I've gotten so used to the taste of an IPA over the last 7 years. If I go out and drink, I'll have one or two of those. But I'm honest, I'm almost sober, guys. And that's not because I have an addiction. It's just I don't drink that much because when I drink too much now, my body completely tells me to go fuck myself. And it's like, hey, you're going to pay for this. And it used to be a couple of hours. Now you're not going to feel good for a week. So
I know it's been over a decade, but there's part of me that still wishes I could go out and grab a Canadian and Diet Coke with a splash of grenadine in there.
Yeah. I don't mind the memories of it, but my body just, whenever I get too much, and it's not like when you go crazy. It's if you have more than one or two, my body's like, hey, we don't do that anymore. And then I shut it down real fast. Oh, man. Sergio, before we end, I didn't know you were in Southern California. Where are you at in Southern Cal, if you don't mind? Your address and your social, please. We will not tell anyone about that. Driving 18-wheeler, delivering beer to everyone. Oh, that's cool. That's a pretty good job. You're going to stay in business because people are always going to drink, so that's cool.
When you say beer delivery driver, you don't mean you mean driving the big rig, the 18-wheeler, not like a 18-wheeler delivering Postmates or something.
That's a good one. I only ask Sergio because I have a couple of friends out there, in San Diego, people in the Navy. I have a friend, very good friend. You guys should check his band out called 18 Visions. Shout out to my boy James Hart. He's out in Sancho, Margarita, something like that, Rancho Margarita County or something. He's about an hour from LA. When I went to the Vikings Chargers game, he drove up and watched it with me. Riverside County. Okay, sweet. Nice. I got friends in TSA at the LAX airport too, and I don't know how the hell they live there. I don't know how you live there, Sergio, because I'm sure it costs lots and lots of money.
All right, I'm going to do a quick plug before we call her a good one. But at the moment, I'm currently on finished up day 2 of my 30-day challenge with St. Jude, where I'm doing 50 push-ups a day in August for charity. And if you want to make a donation to St. Jude in the name of me doing push-ups, hit me up on Facebook and I'll shoot you over the link.
Very nice, Adam. Next week when we do the show, if you put that up, I'll put the link up for you.
It's definitely a challenge because I am a bigger guy and I have not been the most active. So doing 50 push-ups is not easy. Got to space that stuff out throughout the day,
I used to do that too, Adam. My goal was to do 100 to 200 a day, but it was never at once. It wasn't even split in half. It's like every hour on the hour, and I would divide it. And it didn't matter where I was, especially when I was in the military. They'd be like, timer's going off, Smith. You got to do push-ups again. I'm like, I actually should do that. The worst is
I started physical therapy a couple of weeks ago, so I've been doing a lot more activity, but they're kind of focusing on my legs and my mobility for now. So to have something to do with my arms too makes it feel like a nice full body workout because you're working your shoulders and your arms, and it feels like I'm doing a lot more than I used to because I am, and man, I felt sore. But yeah, I figured I'd give a shout out to St. Jude there, and if anyone wants to donate in the name of that, hit me up, and I'll shoot you over the link. I've been sharing it on my personal Facebook page, which I know some of you are already on my personal Facebook page. Some of you are not, but I figured why not? Charity is a good thing.
St. Jude's is always cool by us.
And once again, I want to thank everyone who joined us in the chat. You can find us everywhere. Anytime a new podcast place comes up, I try to get us on there. And if some of those podcast places I was on, I think some of those shut down, so we might actually be on fewer than before. But we are out there on at least the major ones. Hit us up. Find us Purple People Podcast. You can listen to us. You can find the full archive of shows over on YouTube, although I don't recommend going back way too far because the show quality has definitely changed over the year. That's for sure. And on behalf of me and both Kyles, I do want to wish everyone a great Minnesota Vikings preseason training camp and season. We'll be back in about a week, and stay classy, Minnesota.